Hi, it's Katie from Yarn Society. Welcome, welcome. Today we're going to be doing an abbreviated crochet along for this herringbone pumpkin. We're going to do the first 5 rows together so you can learn this beautiful herringbone stitch, and then we will put the pumpkin together including the stem. The pattern includes 3 different sizes for this pumpkin, and it is a written pattern on Yarn Society. It is free, and I will link to it in the description box below. But you can make whatever size you'd like. It's just made into a flat panel, and then we will construct it into a pumpkin. For this pattern, I used Chainette Lion Brand yarn. It is so soft, and it turned out to be the perfect yarn for this project. We're going to start with the herringbone single crochet stitch tutorial. I'll be using a chunky yarn for this tutorial, but the yarn that we'll use for the pumpkin is worsted, and the hook sizes are mentioned in the pattern. Here is what the small panel will look like for the small pumpkin. There is a right and a wrong side to the panels, and the herringbone design with the V is the right side, and the back has ridges is considered the wrong side. Okay, finally onto the stitch. We are going to start by making a slip knot. So you're going to take the yarn, wrap it around 2 fingers. You're going to have the yarn from the back, and you're going to push it to the front. Pull that piece of yarn up, tighten it at the base, insert your hook, and then tighten it once again. For this tutorial, I'm going to do 12 stitches, so we're going to chain 12. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to start out by making a single crochet into the back bump only. We are only working into the back bumps for row 1. So here are the back bumps. If you have the V's facing you, you just flip it towards you and you will find the back bumps behind that V. Single crochet into the second back bump from the hook. So place your hook underneath the bump, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook. So you'll have 2 vertical bars here, and you will want to put your hook underneath the vertical bar that's closest to your next stitch. Place the hook underneath the bar, and then place your hook in the next back bump. Yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop to the same height of the other stitches, yarn over again, and pull through all 3 loops. So now you are going to have 3 vertical bars, and you are going to go under the vertical bar that is closest to your stitch. Go under the bar and go into the next back underneath the back bump. Yarn over, pull through to the height of the other stitches. Yarn over, pull through 3 loops on the hook. So we're going to continue this all the way down the row. Put your hook underneath the vertical bar, underneath the back bump, yarn over, and then we're going to pull through all 3 loops. Under the back bar, vertical bar, excuse me, and then under the back bump, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Under the vertical bar, and then under the back bump. You want to make sure that you pull that stitch up to meet the other stitches so your stitches aren't too tight, because if they are, you will not be able to get your hook underneath that vertical bar. So here we're ending on our last back bump, so go behind the vertical bar and then go under the last back bump, yarn over, pull through, make sure that that one is pulled up, and pull through all 3 loops. Row 1 is now complete. From here, we are going to turn our work. Row 2, we are going to chain 1, and we are going to do a single crochet into the first stitch, but we are going to do it with our hook from back to front. So here is our first stitch next to our chain. We're going to insert our hook from back to front. Then tighten the yarn that is on your hook and bring that yarn, the working yarn, to the front. This is going to feel a bit awkward, but you'll get the hang of it as we continue on. So pull the yarn through. This feels really weird, but pull it on through, and as you do, your hook will start to turn automatically. So you'll feel that turn in your hands. Pull the loop up to the height of the other loop, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. We are going to start the herringbone single crochet. So what you're going to do is rotate the swatch towards you. The V's are going to face you, and we are going to go under the vertical bar and into the next stitch, just like we did for row 1. So you'll find your vertical bar here, place the hook under the bar, and then into the next stitch from back to front. This does feel really weird, but as you do this stitch, you'll get the hang of it. Pull that yarn through, your hook will turn, pull it up to the height of your other 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Rotate your work again towards you. This time you'll have 3 vertical bars. You're going to pick the bar that's closest to your stitch. Place your hook under that vertical bar. Then place it under the next stitch from back to front. Pull the yarn through. Pull it up to the height of the other stitches. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So we're going to continue the same motion down the row. Underneath the vertical bar, underneath the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Go under the vertical bar, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull it through, pull it up to the height of the next 2 loops, and then pull it through. So here we're going to go through our last stitch, go under the vertical bar, under the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through again. So now we are done with row 2. Row 2 is also considered the wrong side, and you will know that because you will see the ridge forming on that side. Turn your work and we will begin with row 3. For row 3, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to single crochet into the first stitch of the row. So we are going to make 1 single crochet, and then we're going to start with the herringbone single crochet. So we are going to go under the vertical bar closest to our stitch, go under the next stitch, we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So we're going to continue that again, going under the vertical bar closest to our stitch, go under the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, make sure you pull it to the height of the other 2 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to continue this down the row, under the bar, under the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Reaching our last stitch here, I must have pulled really tight because my last stitch almost looks hidden. So you don't want to miss that stitch, just in case you are pulling a little tighter. So go under the bar, make sure you go under that last stitch, pull up a loop and yarn through. From here on out, we're going to repeat row 2 and 3, but I'm going to go through the next 2 rows with you. We're going to turn our work, we're going to chain 1, and now we're going to be working on the wrong side. So we're going to make a single crochet into the first stitch next to the chain, but we are going to do it from back to front. This is considered the wrong side of our work. Tighten the yarn on your hook and pull that working yarn from back to front. Put your hook underneath the first stitch. We're going to make a single crochet from back to front. Pull the yarn through, the hook will turn on its own. Pull the loop up to the same height of the next loop. Yarn over and pull through. So now we're going to rotate our work towards us, and then we are going to go under that vertical bar next to our stitch. We have 2 vertical bars, and we will go under this one. So you go under the bar, into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, your hook will turn, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. We're going to go under the vertical bar closest to our stitch, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, go up to the height of the other 2 stitches, and then yarn over and pull through. So rotate your work and continue this down the row. Here we're reaching our last stitch. We're going to go under the vertical bar and into the last stitch. And I am struggling a bit because I do think I'm pulling my last stitches. I'm not pulling them up. So learn from my mistakes and pull your loop up to the height of the next two, yarn over and pull through. So now we are finished with the wrong side. That was row 2, repeat. And now we're going to do row 3, repeat. So we're going to turn our work, chain 1, we're going to single crochet into the first stitch. We're going to go from front to back. This is the right side of our work. This is the herringbone stitch side. And then we're going to go underneath the vertical bar closest to our stitch. Into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So continue this down the row, under the vertical bar, under the next stitch. Here's our last stitch of row 3, going under the vertical bar, under the stitch, pulling through. So all you're doing is repeating row 2 and 3, going from back to front, from front to back, and it will create this beautiful herringbone stitch. I love it in this yarn. It's actually beautiful. It's more of a workout than anything with the thicker yarn, but if you're using worsted, it will be a lot easier. So this is an example of the wool, and this is another swatch that I did with Color Made Easy from Lion Brand, and then this is the stitch for the pumpkin using the chainette yarn. So they all have like a little bit of a different look, but they all look very beautiful. So just to give you an idea of how it looks in different yarn. Here is a swatch that I made for the large pumpkin. I do have 2 long tails on this panel, and I put the tail length in the actual pattern. For the tail that you begin with your slip knot and chain is really long, you can roll it up and put a stitch marker into the corner stitch just to keep it in place. That's just a little tip because it did get in my way quite a bit when I was crocheting. To close the pumpkin, we are going to fold it in half with the herringbone stitch facing out. We want the ridges to be facing each other. Thread the yarn to your right into your yarn needle. We're going to whip stitch across the row. So I'm going to skip that little stitch that was the fasten off, and I'm going to go under both loops of the first stitch on one side and 2 loops of the first stitch on the other side. Pull the needle through, and then we're going to go under both loops of the second stitch and both loops on the second stitch of the other side. We're going to make sure that our yarn lays on top, and then we're going to pull tight. We're going to continue this whip stitch all the way down the row. Going into our last 4 stitches, we are going to weave this end into our piece. So with Movie Magic, I weaved my other yarn tail through a yarn needle, and we're going to do a running stitch where we go in and out of the stitch. But really quick, I'm going to share a tip. If you want to know where you started, you can grab a stitch marker and just place it right next to your first running stitch. So we're going to go in through a stitch, skipping a few stitches as we go, going out through the stitch, and in through the stitch. We're going to continue this all the way around. When we get to our end, we're near our stitch marker. I'm just going to end by going in through the stitch. We're going to give this a little cinch. This will be the bottom of our pumpkin. We are going to cinch it here. Don't worry about it being too tight because we're going to mess with it again. And then we're going to begin stuffing our pumpkin. If you want an extra tall pumpkin, I would stuff it to the top, and if you want a squishier pumpkin, I would just leave a little bit of room on top. So here we're going to cinch our pumpkin once again tight, and we're going to put our needle right through the middle of the bottom and weave it up through the top. It's going to go right through the middle of our stuffing. So pull that up. I also like to give it another little cinch. Don't break your yarn, just be careful. And then we're going to do a running stitch on this side. We're going to go out through a stitch and in through a stitch, the same thing we did for the bottom. I'm going to place a little stitch marker here so I know where I started. And then continue the running stitch. We're reaching the end of our running stitch. So I'm going to end by going in towards the pumpkin. I'm going to cinch this shut, just be careful not to grab the stuffing. And then what I like to do is squeeze the pumpkin in the middle shut. And here I will show you. So I'm cinching, pull your yarn tight, but make sure not to break it. I did do that once. We are going to insert your needle back through the middle of the top through the bottom of the pumpkin. So go right down the middle, and as you do this, you're going to squeeze the middle tight so that the yarn doesn't have to pull so hard. You're going to squeeze the middle, give it a tug, and then you're going to go back up through the bottom, but you're going to move a tad bit over. You don't want to go right up through the middle, you want to move a little bit over to the side. So you're going to go up to the side, and then you're going to go up to the top, but you're going to go also to the side of the middle. Pull that through, and then make sure you're pulling the middle tight while you pull the yarn through. You're using your fingers here. Now I'm going to move over a stitch. Again, I'm not going right down the middle, I'm going to the side, and then weaving that through to the bottom, moving over a tad bit from the middle. So each time I do this, I'm using my fingers and pulling the middle really tight. I'm pulling my yarn, and then I'm going to continue this quite a few times. Since I have a really long piece of tail, I'm going to go up and back a few times. Okay, so I'm happy with the way my pumpkin looks. I think it looks like a pretty decent pumpkin. So what I'm going to do is end with the yarn at the bottom of the pumpkin. I'm going to grab a piece of a stitch. I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to pull up a loop, and then I'm going to go behind the loop, put my yarn needle through, and make a knot so that I keep that yarn secure. Then I'm going to weave the yarn through the pumpkin. Next, we're going to work on the stem, and then I will show you how to connect it, and we will be all done with our pumpkin. On to making the stem. I'll be using the chainette worsted weight yarn, a 4.5 size hook, and a pair of scissors. This is the pattern for the large stem. We're going to start out by making a slip knot and leaving about a 4-inch tail, and then we're going to chain 17. Working into the back bumps of the chain only, we are going to single crochet in the second back bump from the hook. Here is our first stitch, our second, and then we're going to find that back bump right behind that V. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook. So now we're going to have 2 vertical bars, and we're going to go underneath the vertical bar closest to our next stitch. Go under the bar, and then we're going to go under the next back bump of the chain. Yarn over, pull through. Now we're going to yarn over and pull through 3 loops on our hook. That leaves us with 3 vertical bars, which is a little bit harder to see with the chainette yarn. We have 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to go underneath the back bar that's closest to our stitch. Under the vertical bar, and then under the back bump. Yarn over, pull through, pull that up to the length of the other stitches, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Go under the vertical bar, and then under the back bump, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we're going to be continuing this all the way down the chain, going underneath the vertical bar and then underneath the back bump. So now we're reaching our last stitch here. We went under the bar and now we're going under the back bump. And we are finished. So we are going to cut up to the length of our initial tail, and then we're going to fasten off. And this is essentially our stem. So now we're going to put the whole pumpkin together. Grab your pumpkin and grab your stem. We are going to fold our stem in half, it doesn't matter which side, and then grab a yarn needle and thread one of the ends into your yarn needle. Place the yarn needle into a stitch on the opposite side and pull it through. Then thread the other tail into the yarn needle and put that into a stitch on the other side of the stem, not the same stitch. You'll use the other stitch that's there. So now you have that weaved in. Grab your pumpkin and place your needle into a stitch that's closest to the middle. Pull it through and then make a knot with the 2 tails that you have, trying to make the knot as close to the pumpkin as you can. So make a double knot, and then we're just going to weave in each end, and basically that is it. It's super easy. So here are a finished pumpkin, or pumpkins I should say. Don't forget to grab the free pattern on yarnsociety.com. I'll also leave that link in the description box below and all the supplies you'll need for each size. Feel free to use any worsted weight yarn that you have on hand. It all looks great. Please, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and always let me know if you have any questions. Happy pumpkin making!